hopefully, yeah, Mr. D and I have been emphasizing this enough, but it's so important um, when you're learning engineering techniques to learn more the logic about it, and to stay interested and to stay curious, have that curious mind, because what you learn in SketchUp, building cubes and smoothing out lines and edges, that might not be the same as how you do those things in Tinkercad. But knowing that you can do that and realizing, why would you smooth an edge, or how is that important, or understanding the steps to modeling, those are going to stay the same. And the differences are going to be small. And the more and more software that you get acknowledged with, the easier it is for you to switch between them. And even understanding more about programming, not even using CAD software, but just programming, it's going to help you. You just get more associated with computers and, kind of the trends and the patterns that fall into computer software. All right. Oh, some questions? Yeah, you guys, my screen was not up. Thank you, Andrew and Tegan. Excellent catch there. All right. But I wasn't doing anything on my screen. I was just talking, giving everyone a little bit of time to get here. I see we have 10 attendees for this webinar, and that's great. Yeah, so we're still giving some people some time to get here. Wanted to show everybody that what Annie sent in. See if Annie's here. No, I think Annie comes to the 6:30 webinar, but here her father helped, and they made this Raspberry Pi dock. This is on Edmodo, but I don't know if you guys got a chance to see it. Very cool. It looks really cool. You have your laptop with your Raspberry Pi connection, and they have the instructions for that as well in a Microsoft Word document. But a much better setup than the setup I have at my home, at least. Keep everything organized and nice. So very cool. Let's see. Any other questions? All right, so it's 3:33. I'm gonna go ahead and get started today. Talk a little bit about what we're doing. Today we will be learning a few more techniques to help us in SketchUp. And we're gonna start to talk about architecture and the different steps it takes when you're designing. We're gonna start with a garage and then with a house. It's gonna be our last larger project with SketchUp. And on Wednesday, we're not going to just use SketchUp. We're going to think about it even wider. What are the steps it takes when designing a house? What are the questions you need to ask? We're going to talk a little bit about specs or specifications, working with someone when you're designing something like that. And so how is this CAD software helpful? How is it helpful for engineers and for architects? And we'll see people who actually use these models to create stuff in Legos, which is really cool because if if you know of a program in your area that actually lets you compete in Lego competitions, you can use your CAD software, modeling software, to think of ideas before you start building with Lego. Very cool stuff. Wow. Nico says that he built the Olympic-sized pool at Swim Mac, that's a aquatic center in Charlotte. Very cool, Nico. Andrew, I'm not sure what you mean with or LDD. But get back to me on that. Lego Digital Designer. Oh yeah, I'm sure they have their own CAD program. That's really cool. I'm not familiar with Lego Digital Designer, but I'd actually love to check that out. Andrew, we'll check that out for Wednesday. Thanks for sending that. That's great. People are already sending in some work there. All right, so let's take a look at this presentation. We will still be using SketchUp. Today we're going to talk about rotating, and I know that we have discussed rotating in the past, but now that we know a little bit more about drawing shapes in 2D, and we're just a little bit more familiar with the program, we're going to take another look back at rotating. We're going to talk about scaling, which can be really cool. You can make things larger or smaller, but you can also change the shape of an object by just changing the size of one of its faces. X-ray, you can make almost see-through walls so that if you're building, you don't have to keep using the orbit key to see all the different, if you're building multiple objects around each other and they're blocking each other, the X-ray allows you to see the different objects without having to orbit all the time. Offsets, we're going to talk a little bit more about the stuff we can do with offsets. There's some shortcuts there that are really nice. And then hopefully if we have time, we'll talk about guides, which can be super helpful if you are trying to line up your objects. First, a bit of a review. All right, so there is a shortcut for the sphere. One thing with SketchUp, I'm always learning. You know, I'm new to SketchUp too, guys, and so if there are probably shortcuts I don't know. The way I showed you guys to make a sphere will definitely work. Oh, wow. Sorry, guys. There was a question that Nico sent in. He said that you can no longer buy your own Lego models, but I did not know that you originally were. So I guess you'd be able to design something online and then buy the Legos to make it. That would be really cool. They should definitely start that again. That sounds great. So you'd be able to online create a model and then to have the Legos shipped to you to make it in real life. I'm sure you could find the Legos, though. I'm sure you could put it together. All right. So there is a shortcut for making a sphere, and it's a lot easier. So let me show you how to do this. I want everybody to try. Go ahead, you just make a circle, and we're going to make it on that XY plane, that flat plane there. And then you're going to make another circle. To tell SketchUp that you want this orientation, you do not have to make an example circle. All you have to do is hold down the Shift key once you have that red circle. And there you go. You'll see that, you know, it will, well, now it's the green one, but it will still follow you around. You don't have to do the example circle. You can just use that. Then you can make this second circle, bring it to the end there, bring it to that end point. Hold on. Make sure it's right. All right, so it matches up. Now what we're going to do is take the select tool, double click on that flat circle, hit the follow me tool, and click on this surface. And SketchUp does it for us. We don't have to work on it. SketchUp just makes this very lovely sphere for us. So I'm going to show that to everyone one more time, and then I want you guys to try it. All right, we make a circle, and you actually don't even, here, get this either the red or the green circle. There's the green, there's the red. Hold down Shift and go ahead and make your smaller circle. It doesn't even need to be the same size. You can make the circle that big. This one needs to be smaller though. The one that you select, that you double click, needs to be bigger than the other one. Use the follow me tool, and so you use the select tool first, you double click on the bigger circle. Once that's selected, you use the follow me tool and you select the other surface. In order to delete this, now it's kind of a Saturn effect, right? In order to delete that, you just simply click on it and delete. And you go, yeah, Saturn. All right, and a beautiful sphere. So go ahead, try that out, and raise your hand once you got it to work, or send me a message. so much easier than the 3-circle method. Sherry got it. Awesome, Sherry. Also, guys, if I ever get your name wrong and you're embarrassed to tell me, you don't want to raise your hand and say, Denise, you mess up my name every single class, please send me a message so I know, so I can stop messing up your name. I have been in class before, I've been there, where a teacher messes up my name a lot, and I just don't want to say anything because I don't want to be rude, but I guarantee you I will be much happier if I know I'm saying your name correctly. So, great. People are getting it. That's awesome, guys. Make sure you are raising your hand, though. I'll show one more time. So I'm going to show one more time in case you're having trouble. Build the 1 circle. This is going to be our larger one. I move up here till I either get the red or the green circle. Hold down Shift, and then I can just move this cursor right down. I don't have to do the example circle. There we go. Then I use my Select tool, double-click this larger circle, the Follow Me tool, and select the top one. Get that beautiful sphere. No lines. Just a really nice smooth surface there. Great. All right, guys, we're actually going to move on for today. This will be online if you didn't quite get it to work, but hopefully now this is a much easier way to get a circle. And there are little shortcuts like this all throughout SketchUp, and they're really handy. One such shortcut is you're able to, let me show you guys this. You are able to single click to select a surface or an edge. Double clicking will select a surface and all touching edges. Triple clicking on a surface will select the whole surface, the whole shape. This is a huge time saver. It's really nice. Because that way, instead of having to go through and highlight this whole object, you can simply double click it and be able to move it much easier. Questions on that? Great. Let's continue. And so again, just showing a reminder of what we did last time, where we smoothed out these edges using arctangents and the push-pull tool, but we used it kind of to punch out or to shave down those edges. So that arc tool is really nice if you need a smooth surface. Groups and components, we talked about that last week. To make a group or a component, highlight the items or the shapes that you want in that group or component. And then you go into Edit, Make Group, or Make Component. These are also shortcuts. If you see these symbols here, they're going to be different for Macs as they are on PCs. This weird shape is the command symbol, and you use your command key. That symbol should be on your keyboard if you have a Mac. If you have a PC, that should be the control key. All right. But anyway, so you can either make it a group or make it a component, and we saw that it does a similar thing, right? It just creates this black or this blue box around the items, and they're not editable unless you right click and edit them, which we see here, but you can also move them together. If you just try to move that cylinder, or if you just try to move this flat shape, it's going to move both. It makes them from 2 separate items into 1. The difference is we saw that when you changed a group, it does not change its copies. Or if you change a copy of a group, it doesn't change the original. They're different. Changing one component does change all of its copies because components are instanced. They're tied together. So an example here of why you would make something a group is if two separate objects that don't touch, so SketchUp does not realize that they're connected, if you want them to have a connection, if you want when you move one, the other to move as well. And an example with that would be a pair of shoes. You know, you have the two separate shoes, but you want to highlight them, make them one object, make them a group. Because if you copy them and make another pair of shoes, you might want to change them or change the color, change whatever. You know, they're not necessarily tied together. However, components, again, if you have something like columns or walls that you want to be identical, the benefit with components are that if you have columns supporting a roof, you can raise one column and all the columns will be raised. So you don't have, if you wanted to make the roof slightly higher, you don't have to go through and change every single column. You can just change one column and it will change. So we saw that here. This is the original group and its edited copy. This edit did not change the original. Unlike this one where we edited the copy and the original was changed. If you right-click on a component or group and hit explode, it simply takes that group and makes it separate objects again. And we saw that the components has a special component window. So here, you can highlight this column, make it a component, and then go in up on this toolbar, go to Window, pull down to the components, and then you can see that you can select that column and add it into your model as many times as you need to. All right, does anyone have a question? Oh, Nico says, triple click on the sphere, geometry at work. Cool, let's see what happens there. I'm gonna make my sphere real fast. So guys, this is so much faster than the other way, I love it. Make a sphere in no time. I got pretty good at that other way though. Oh, waste. All right. Double click that, follow me there. All right, and we are following our classmate's advice. We're gonna triple click on the sphere. Oh, very cool. Nice smooth lines there. Kind of looks like latitude and longitude lines for the globe. Very nice. All right, so no questions about any of the review that we went over? Great. Now we're going to get into a more interactive part of class where you guys can be trying some stuff out. We're going to take a look at the rotate button. So again, here's the rotate button up here. You can actually get to it if you have your select key. You can just press R. Nope. Shift R. What is it here? Q. The Q. And that will get you to the rotate. Space is the select. Trying to learn these because they can be really helpful if you know them. You don't have to keep going back and clicking. So I'm going to go ahead and make a box. And then I am going to select all my sides. And I'm going to use this rotate tool. And so the first click I make is going to anchor the point at which, we're determining how we're going to rotate this object. So if I click here, it's like I just sent a pencil through that box, and now it's going to rotate around that pencil. And now I can set this other point, which is kind of the length or the arm of that rotation. So I'll click again and see that line that I created. That's just how it's rotating here. All right, so it can be more clear if I show this way. So maybe we're over here. I click, and so now the box is going to rotate around that point. And I'll have my arm right here. I'll have the arm be really close to the axis. What happens? All right, we have this rotation here. And now we're sliding this box across our axis. And if we place it here, kind of askew between the plates, on this plane, there's no way we would have been able to create a box like that with SketchUp. We would have to use the rotation, right? Because SketchUp wants everything to be parallel or perpendicular to those axes. So go ahead and mess around with this for a little bit. Wait, before you do, I want to show you guys one more thing. If I want to rotate like this over here, if I want to set my anchor point like this, how I did that and not have this flat, which is what SketchUp wants, how you do that is you simply get the color that you want or the orientation that you want, hold shift, and then you're able to move it anywhere. And then click. Again, get your arm. So go ahead and try this out. Try out different anchors, and you can see how you can orient this box in space. In order to do this, you would have had to, draw these individual lines. It would have been way more difficult than just rotating it the way you want it. Let's try that out for a little bit. All right, let's try something else out now. I'm going to use my selection tool, triple click, and delete my object. So that was the rotation. Now let's talk about scaling. I'm going to create a cube, and to do that, I'm going to enter in the dimensions because I want the sides to be equal. I have a 2000 by 2000 millimeters square, and I'm going to pull that up into a cube. And then I'm going to select the whole cube by triple clicking. I'm going to use this scaling button that's under rotate. And when I click that, we see these green little cubes appear. And when I hover my mouse over one of them, you see that the one that I hover my mouse over turns red, and the opposite one turns red as well. So what it's doing, you can see that it's changing too. If you do one of the corner ones, it says uniform scale about opposite point. Here it says blue scale about opposite point, and it's talking about blue, the axis. Here's red scale about opposite point. So if you do uniform scale about opposite point, it just makes the whole cube bigger, uniformly. The width, the length, the height, all grows. If you want it to double in size, start pulling out, and then just type 2. And now it's doubled in size. You can half it in size by start pulling in and type in 0.5. All right. If you just try to scale about like blue scale or red scale, it just changes it along that dimension. So right now it's just changing it along the red axis. Just changing it along the green axis. This changes it on the red-blue axis. And it'll tell you when you hold your mouse over, that's red-blue scale, uniform scale, red-green scale. So go ahead and mess around with this for a little bit. Try hitting Option, and you'll see that it changes about the center. Option or Control. So instead of just pulling this left side away, if I hold down Option, the left and the right side move away. I'm undoing all my scales to get that original shape back. Right, I have my cube back again. Alright guys, so go ahead, get your cube back or create another cube. I'll just go ahead and create another cube so that we're all on the same page. I want mine to be 2000 by 2000. I'm going to pull it up, 2000. And now, instead of triple clicking, I'm going to select this top surface and double click it. So I don't want the whole cube, I just want this top shape. And now I'm going to use the scale to change just the shape of the top of the object without changing the shape of the bottom of the object. And so let's see what that does. Creates this wedge effect, or creates almost this pyramid effect. Again, if you hit Option or Control, you're able to have all the sides come in and create more of a pyramid. All right. And someone in the last class asked me, well, how would you make a pyramid? I am sure there is another way to make a pyramid in SketchUp, but the way I suggested, go from midpoint to midpoint there, and we're going to create a line that uses that midpoint as a guide. We're going to go up from that midpoint, that blue dotted line there. Oh man, we're going to have to pan over a little bit. Using that midpoint, move up until the line turns purple. Okay. All right, so keep going until it is both, you see that blue line because of my guide from the midpoint, and it is pink from being parallel to that edge. There we go, and then you can connect that to the other corners. You have your little pyramid. You can erase the lines. All right, very cool stuff. So again, how we did that is that we use the selection tool to select just the top, but you don't have to be the top. You can use this side. And then you use your scale, hold down Option to do from the center, and you can change the shape of just one part of your object, or the size, not the shape. All right. You guys play with that for a little bit. I'll again show you guys how to make a pyramid if you want to watch. All right, guys. Let's talk about our next new tool, which is the X-ray view. So this can be really useful. If you see here that we have this box, but then there's this cylinder behind it, but we can't see it when it's solid like that. You go into your toolbar up here, the top of your screen, View, Face Style, X-ray, and all of the faces that you have, my pyramid here, will disappear and you'll be able to see through them. So here I'm able to see through that cylinder and see the pyramid. Again, View, Face Style, X-ray. When I did this in my last class, I also had someone ask me, well, how would you be able to see through just one surface and not all of them? This person was trying to make a window, or they were describing a window, so I wanted to just show you guys how to do that. Again, it's View, Face Style, X-ray to get that effect. I'm going to turn mine off. And now we're going to make a quick window. Use the paint, and we haven't done a lot with paint because it can be really fun. You can add, like here, once you open that paint, see wood. You can add wood to your objects and stuff like that, but it's not necessarily key to the model. It can really help you solve it, just like the 3D warehouse isn't integral to what we're learning. The paint is just kind of, extra bonus. But if you want to be able to look inside something you made, like a garage, you go to translucent, and then you can insert glass at that point. And you can see that while everything else is solid, there seems to be a pane of glass right there. Similar X-ray effect. So again, that's the paint bucket, and from this pull down bar, translucent. There's water that's translucent. I had this one I think is really nice. It seems to be like clouds, or I guess maybe water. It's really pretty. And I like this one. This really reminds me of strange glass from like a bathroom or something. But they have really cool stuff in here. I recommend you guys playing with it at some point. Like military almost. All right. Delete that. And let's move to the next one. We're just going through topics today. Offsets. So we have worked with offsets before, but there are some things I wanted to show you guys. If you guys remember from when we punched out the legs of the table, we wanted to use an offset to create equally sized legs, but we didn't want that last, we wanted almost like 3 lines, right? Because for our table, let me show you guys what I'm talking about. We created our box for our table, we pulled it up, and then we created an offset with the offset tool, clicked one time and brought this up. And this was going to be the base of our table up here. And these were going to be the legs, but we didn't need this chunk right here. That was unnecessary. Well, what you can do before creating an offset, what we did was we ended up moving it down, right? And that got rid of it, and that works. But what you can actually do instead is before you use the offset tool, select the edges that you want the offset tool to come from, and then click the offset tool, and you will just have those 3 lines there. And it gets rid of that last step of moving the line down. If you guys also remember, we had to do this to all of the sides. Well, there's actually a shortcut. With the offset tool still selected, simply orbit and double click the side. Ooh. We want to deselect those edges. Double click this side. We actually have to, again, select the 3 edges so that it understands, but then select offset and just double click. And what it's doing is it's just, again, creating that same thickness of an offset. And that able, we can use the push-pull, punch through, and it was much faster than having to do it individually each time. Again, offset, just double clicking. Right, but if we wanted to get it to not do that third, that 4th line, using our selection tool and selecting the top 3. Not that face, just click again. I'm holding down Shift to select multiple lines. Holding down Shift brings up that plus or minus sign. The offset tool and then double click. Any questions? No, it's really fast. All right, guys. So we actually do have time to work on guides today. The original class, or the 1:30 class, did not. You guys we're clipping right along. So let's take a look at this. We can use the tape measure tool, and that's this tool here. And you can use it to measure shapes. So you click once, and then as you continue along, in the bottom right corner, you can see how long things are, how many millimeters. When you click again, it simply goes away. So a pretty cool tool. Andrew, if we have time at the end, we can do that challenge, but let's just keep going for now. All right, so I want everybody to go ahead and make a cube Make it 700 by 700 millimeters. Pull it up 700 millimeters. Give everyone a second to do that. Now I want you guys to triple click, select your whole cube, right click, and make it a group. We're going to go ahead and copy. Using the Command or Control C, we're going to edit, copy, and then either edit, paste, or Command V or Control V, and just place it. They do not have to be in line. Just place, we're going to have 3. Now, if we want to align these cubes in a straight line, what we can do is select the top edge. Oh, guys, actually it's going to make it way easier if we explode these. Don't make them groups yet. So go ahead. So I right click and hit explode, so these guys are just individual objects now. Right? So click this top edge of one of your cubes. I'm doing the middle one here. And then hit that tape measure tool. And what you're going to do is hold down either the Option key or the Control key, depending if you have a Mac or a PC. And just double clicking on that line. Oh, that was the wrong way. Double clicking on that selected edge. So I held down the Option key and I double clicked that edge. I didn't actually have to select the edge, but it was just easier for me to see. So I'll show you guys that again. I have my measuring tool, tape measure. I held down Option because I have a Mac. And I double clicked and this dotted line came up, and that's called a guide. Now, when I select this cube and move it by the midpoint there, I can move it so that it's on line. You'll see that little marker there, on line. And I can do the same, use my selection tool, select this whole cube, and move it with that midpoint till it is on line. And now we know, because of this guide, that these cubes are all directly in line with each other. Way easier to do with this guide than if you were just trying to use, just trying to eyeball it. What we can also do is we can use the guides to make sure that they're equally distant. So again, use the tape measure tool, select that corner, that endpoint of one cube, and bring it over. Let's say we want them all 500 millimeters apart. So I'm going to type 500 and press enter. And now over that black line, oh wait, Oh, I made it too long because 500 is going to be, oh yeah. So it's right there. Okay, great. I don't know why it is so difficult to see though. Let's go from right here so that it's more easy to see. It's not right on that marker. So from the edge, I'm going to go over. That's parallel with the red axis. I'm going to pull it over, this time 350 millimeters. And did you see that line there that it made? This this vertical line here is another guide. I can triple click this cube and move it so that this endpoint matches up with the intersection of the two guides. And then I know this distance is 350 millimeters, so I know that these cubes are 350 millimeters apart. Again, I'll show you on this side because I know that was a little unclear. I have the tape measurer. I go from the edge. I start to pull over. I type 350 millimeters, enter, and then I get this vertical line, this vertical guide. And I want to move this cube over to the intersection. So I use my selection tool to select the whole cube, select that endpoint there, and bring it to that intersection. And now these are evenly spaced, aligned cubes. I know with a cube, it might not seem that important, but if you're building a more complex model and you want everything to be aligned, you can use guides, and they are actually super, super helpful tools. It's like almost like creating another axis that you can align things with. To get rid of your guides when you don't want to see them anymore, you can use the eraser tool and just erase those dotted lines. So go ahead and try that, guys, and raise your hand when you are able to use guides to line up your cubes. I'm going to give everyone 2 or 3 minutes to try, and then we'll move on. If you got it to work and you lined up your cubes, keep playing around with guides and see if you can make guides that move along or that go along with a polygon shape. How would that work? What would that look like? And what could you do with that? All right, so I will go ahead and just give everyone a few minutes to get it to work, and then I'll talk about it again in case you guys are struggling a little bit with guides or if I was unclear. All right, so I'm not seeing too many hands. Make sure you raise your hands once you got it to work or send me a message. And I'm going to show everybody real fast again how to create those guides. So keep working if you think you got it. If not, you can watch my screen. I'm going to move my cubes. And again, I can press the space bar to get my selection tool, and then just triple click to select the whole thing. So it's really easy. Max, you did it? Great. So if I want to move them so that they're all aligned with this cube, I am going to use the tape measure tool and create a guide. You might get confused because you might think that plus sign is, where your cursor is, but it's actually where that red dot is, where that cyan dot is now. Hold Option and double click. You just actually just double click on that midpoint line, and that creates that guide. And again, you can click on the edge and pull this over and type 350, and that creates this vertical guide. We're going to do the same on this side. Click the edge, pull it over, 350. So now this guide is exactly 350 millimeters from this edge. Space bar to get my selection tool. I'm going to triple click that cube. I'm going to move it by this upper right endpoint so that I can move it right to this intersection. And it'll have that red X and it'll say intersection. Space bar to get my selection tool. I'm going to move it by this endpoint to again bring it over to that intersection. And now these are aligned and equally spaced. And I can erase my guides. There. A very, very helpful tool, guides, because you can leave them in your program for a while. You don't have to delete them. You don't have to use them to align just 3. If you're creating a shape that doesn't have these traditional axes, but you want to see more axes or more grid points, you can use guides. You can set them. All right, guys, so we only have 5 minutes. If you're still working on guides, that's totally fine, but we're going to move on, or just work on them after class. I'm going to show you guys the challenge for this week. I want you guys to design a garage and think about, if I am your client and I approach you and ask you to design a garage, we're going to kind of explore the idea of what information would you need to know and what would the steps need to be as you approach this challenge, and what would you need to consider. Does anyone have an answer? Does anyone know? If I came up to you and asked you, will you design a garage for me? What might be some questions you would ask me? I'll give you one example. If I was going to ask a question as the designer of the garage, I would ask my client, well, how many cars do you have? Anyone else think of another question they might ask? That's okay. No worries there. Oh, someone is saying, how big? Exactly, how big? That's a great question. Max and Tegan said that. And what are you using it for? Nico, that's another great question, because some people use their garage as also another room, or almost like a guest house. They'll put people up in the attic. Some people use it for storage. Sherry is asking, how big is your car? That's really important. If you have a big Suburban, it might not fit in the typical garage. Guys, these are great questions. Anthony, do you want windows? Perfect. Yeah, do you want windows? Do you want doors? Do you want just a traditional garage door? Shelves? Do you want an attic? Guys, these are awesome. This is just the sort of thing that I want you guys to think about when you're designing the garage. Here are the specifications that I'm giving you for the project. I want it to be 17 feet by 17 feet by 10 feet. I want it to fit 2 cars. and I want it to have a slanted roof. Everything else, you guys can decide. You can decide if it has windows. You can decide if it has an attic. And to show you guys really fast, I made it feet instead of, 2,000 millimeters or whatever, to show you guys, that, well, first of all, 17 by 17 by 15 is a pretty average size for a garage. But to show you with this rectangle, when you bring it out, you can type 17 single apostrophe, comma, 17 single apostrophe, and that's how you get to feet. You do not type in FT. All right? And then again, push pull up by 15 apostrophe. All right, we have to jump off in just a second because there's another webinar that's going to come up at 4:30. But does anyone have any questions? Nico, when you're typing in the measurements, the way you do it is, let me select, you just start the rectangle with one click, you start pulling it out, and then you just start typing. You do not have to bring your mouse over. And then press enter. All right, guys, I'm excited to see what you're going to do with the garage. Someone asked in the other class if they could use cars from the 3D warehouse. You can use cars from there, but you cannot use any components of a garage. You can't, I want you to make your own windows, your own doors, your own steps, if you want steps. And really think about, how to do this in the most efficient way. For example, for steps, oh, it's not going to let me do what I want to do here. For steps, let me pull this up. Instead of creating separate rectangles, you can just create these lines here, of course equally spaced. These are I'm not doing a great job with equally spaced right now. And just pull out steps. For windows, you can just kind of pull out or carve out windows. Use the Follow Me tool to create some cool designs. And on Wednesday, we're going to talk more about architecture and designing a whole house. Hey Olivia, what's your question?
How do you make the slanted roof again?
Okay, great question. I'll show you guys real fast and then we have to jump off. But let me show you. So you have your rectangle and you can just pull it up. Then you just go from midpoint to midpoint and you use the move. Pull from that midpoint of that line. And you see that I'm pulling up on the blue axis, that dotted blue line. That'll make sure your roof is straight. All right, guys. I will see you on Wednesday. We're going to be designing houses. I will look into that Lego designer as well. Really cool, guys. Thanks for letting me know. And I will see you guys on Wednesday. Cannot wait to see your garages. Here's the specs again.